Welcome, Dr. Swaminathan. It's an honor to shake your hand.
Real pressure.
Before we go into Green Revolution and that debate, which would be the most interesting part of this segment, I would like to ask you, how was your life shaped because your family was involved and very intensely involved in Swadeshi movement, temple entry movement? It was a Gandhian family. Your father was a surgeon, yet he got involved into freedom movement with all the zeal. Were you not neglected as a child?
Well, early education was an ordinary school, nothing particular school, neighborhood school as you will say, or native high school. Then after my father died, left for high school. But my father was a very strong nationalist, like most people in those days, and a strong follower of Gandhiji. I remember Mahatma Gandhi staying in our house in Kumbakonam, and early impressions were very strong. And my mother was also a Gandhian, insisted that we should spin a charka at least 1 hour every day to make our cloth. Because I did at least 7 or 8 years, my early childhood, every day that used to be more or less mandatory. But it gave, all these gave some lessons, because the charka I represented as one, instead of sending your raw material cotton abroad to Lancashire, make the cloth yourself. Why do you want to? In other words, self-reliance, Swadeshi and self-reliance become part of my conviction. And my father was a Gandhian, very successful medical doctor, and a very popular one, because he never used to ask money. If they give the money, he will take it, otherwise he won't. But that town of Kumbakonam was full of filariasis, elephantiasis, and major problems of mosquitoes. And my father felt that mosquitoes are not God-given, they have been man-made. Therefore, just praying for God alone won't help. We have to take action to eradicate it. So he stood for election as a municipal chairman of the Kumbakonam town. Everybody elected him. And within 1 year, he got rid of the mosquito. For simple, I was in the school. Each one of us was in the school was taught where the mosquito is breeding in that particular street. If you don't want a breeding ground, you close it. If you want it, you spray crude oil emulsion. In other words, purely education and social mobilization, not by regulation, law, and so on, mosquito was eradicated. That has always remained with me.
Scientific awareness and mobilization.
Awareness, social mobilization, education, where does the mosquito breed, why does it breed, and so on. Within 1 year, that town, notorious for elephantiasis, big legs and so on, became free of it. So some of my early, and then my mother, I recall when Gandhiji came, I was a very young boy. My mother had told me, in those days it was common for middle class people in South India to wear a bangle or wear a chain or wear a earring. Whether you are son or daughter, doesn't matter. So my mother had told, one man will come this evening, he will ask for all the ornaments. Don't say you can't give, you give it to him. That was Mahatma Gandhi. And he did ask, why are you having it? You give it to me. Then later on I asked my mother, what does he do with all this? He says he auctions it and uses for Harijan welfare for him, because this is superfluous in your body. What is not needed, you must give away. That is how all my prices, everything in the later life, whatever I have given away for this foundation, for example.
You were not irritated, you didn't feel bad that this old man, very old, with a lathi probably, asking for everything that you had.
That's true.
Prized position.
Prices came, but what I meant was, I think what is important is surplus to your requirement. I believe in Gandhiji's saying, you be a trustee of your wealth, not a owner, concept of trusteeship. Whatever you need for your life, you take,
so
otherwise you give away.
What was almost injected in your blood, that love for others, giving up positions,
very strong, I would say,
goods.
very strongly from the childhood, largely from my father, because in our house...
Who was your role model, mother or father? A difficult question.
Which one?
Who was your role model, your father
My
or
role
your
model,
mother?
my father was, but my father died in 1936 when I was just 11 years old. But some of the impressions which he left are indelible. The other were the school teachers and my mother. My mother was so self-sacrificing. She was never make any complaint. Adjust when my father died, our income went down very steeply. She adjusted to a new life without any difficulty. So both parents were very important.
Will you say that that shaped your life? Your teachers also shaped your life?
It was a very important stage in the life because those all lead. When I became later on a teacher at the Indian Agricultural Research Institute, I used to remember what a good teacher should do. And so they remain. Some of these are indelible remarks. It makes sense in your... But I must also say my transition in life, when my father died, he had built a very big hospital, and he trained his younger brother to be a radiologist. Younger brother Narayan Swami, the hall where we are sitting now is called the Narayan Swami Hall because he is the one who brought us up when my father died, my father's younger brother. But with all this kind of attitude of trying to build up a hospital, my mother felt I should go to a medical education when I finished my graduate degree and go back to the hospital, run it. That is where a great change took place. I was at that time in the Maharaja's College in Trivandrum.
A lot of people wanted you to become a lot of personality later also in life. We'll come back to that. I have to take a break. Don't go anywhere. We are talking to Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. We'll come back soon. Welcome back to Eureka. Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, we were discussing about your education. Your mother wanted you to be a doctor and your father was your role model. But you started doing zoology and suddenly shifted to botany. How did that transition come about?
Well, I was studying at the Maharaja's College, Trivandrum, because my father's elder brother was then the chief secretary to the government of Travancore. And since my father was no more, he said, why don't you come and study here? At that time, 1942, Gandhiji gave the Quit India call, and there was very clear feeling that India is going to become independent. So we had a small students' club there where we used to discuss issues. And one day they came, how can we help independent India? Unfortunately, at the same time, when the Quit India movement was called, there was the Great Bengal Famine, 42-43. And I could see from the newspapers, the front pages,
millions
of people.
Several,
about 300,000, more than 3 million children, women and men died out of hunger. Then when it came a round table, what each one can do for an independent India, I spontaneously said, I would like to see that there is no hunger. There is no hunger. The Bengal famine should be a problem of the past in independent India. And therefore, I want to shift from medical side to agricultural side. Well, that was a big shock in a way to my mother and others in the house. Suddenly I said, I go to the agricultural college in Coimbatore and not to the medical college in Madras. Got admission in both. Then I joined the agricultural college at Coimbatore and then decided to enter a field which can make the maximum impact, that is genetics and breeding.
But before that, you were asked to apply for Indian Administrative Service and Indian Police Service and UPSC.
That was when I went to Delhi to further improve my qualification in the field of genetics and plant breeding, because I thought the best way of making the largest contribution is to have new varieties, which every farmer, particularly suited for small and marginal farmers. When I went to Delhi to join the Indian Agricultural Research Institute, popularly called the POSA Institute, for my postgraduate work, one of the officers in the Krishi Bhavan, who was a collector in my town, he knew the family. He said, why have you come to agriculture? It has no future. Sit for the competitive examination and join the civil service. So he filled up the form and I sat and I was selected for the Indian Police Service. I still have the orders of the Government of India from the Home Ministry.
We would have lost a first great scientist and a nationalist.
Well, I had no idea of joining any service, not only police service, administrative service, because then I applied for a fellowship to go to Holland, because Holland is a land of small farms, very good farmers,
And you knew that you wanted to go only to Holland, and this was the reason.
I was clear that hereafter my future is in the field of agriculture. Agricultural research, not agriculture. I could have become a plantation manager. That was not the idea. Agricultural research, particularly a research which is pro-small farmer, which can be oriented towards the technology should not be so complicated that it is not available to resource-poor farmers. So I went to Holland, worked on potatoes because they asked me to work on potatoes because during World War II.
And you were at that time recognized by peers that you are a brilliant scientist.
I started, in fact, I must tell to the credit of the Home Ministry, I wrote to them that I have got a fellowship, UNESCO fellowship to go to Holland, so I can't take up the IPS. But I had also sent a copy of the UNESCO fellowship. That was for 1 year. So 1 year later, Dr. Mohan Sinha Mehta was our ambassador in The Hague, the first ambassador. And he rang me up one day and said, there's an offer from the Home Ministry for you for IPS. I was taken aback. I went to Holland. They said you had said you are going for studies for 1 year. That 1 year is over. If you are still interested, we are posting you in Assam. But that was very nice of them to have done that. Anyway, I wrote to them, I'm very sorry, my misunderstanding. I have no... Then I went to Cambridge, did my PhD, also on potatoes. And when I was in Cambridge, I published a few papers which attracted international attention. And I was invited by the University of Wisconsin, the United States, to set up a potato research center at Sturgeon Bay in Lake Michigan. So from 1949 to 54, first in Holland 1 year, 2 years in Cambridge for PhD, and about 1.5 years in Wisconsin.
But all through you had this at the back of your mind that you will come back to India after getting trained there and serve the country.
I was very clear on that because in fact when I was in Wisconsin, I was offered a very good position as associate professor for a young man. It was in fact, the president invited me for a breakfast and I told him, sir, my intention of going abroad was to equip myself to serve my country. So the question of settling abroad doesn't come at all. He was very moved and he said, you are my blessings. But then when I came back in 1954.
But was it that you wanted to help the poor in the country because of 1942 experience, or was it because you wanted to build a new India?
I said India is an agricultural country. At that time, nearly 75% of the people were in agriculture. An agricultural country going and depending upon other countries for food is a shameful one. So my whole ambition was to ensure food self-sufficiency in the country, and secondly, the food to be available at affordable cost to everyone, non-dependent upon imported food, because even now I'm fond of saying the future belongs to nations with grains and not with guns. Guns you can purchase, grains you cannot purchase. We have to go the PL 480 way to get the grains and so on. Therefore, my broader goal, not as I don't want to exaggerate what one individual can do. It was very clear that we have to work with the political system.
Scientific leadership in the country and the political leadership in the country, they were working in unison, and that brought out results?
That is exactly correct, because unless there is synergy between technology and public policy, technology can show the way, but only public policy can see whether that we realize the potential or not. Therefore, we were fortunate in the 60s. For one thing, the country was desperately in need of more food, and we were having a very bad time depending upon PL 480 wheat, because that obviously needed some compromises in management, fiscal management, in external relations management. So both Lal Bahadur Shastri ji, who coined the term Jai Kisan, Jai Jawan,
right.
He was very clear. He was very clear because I have had the good fortune of meeting him and talking to him several times. He was an agriculturist at heart.
But despite all the support from political leadership in the country, you had immense problem in inviting Dr. Norman to India, who was a big figure.
I was about to say we were lucky at that time to have
you had met him.
Lal Bahadur Shastri on one hand, who brought C. Subramaniam, who was a great believer in science, one of the greatest politicians of our country, developmental political leaders, C. Subramaniam. So I had wanted to go into short varieties of wheat so that we can apply a little more water, a little more fertilizer. And they were available with Dr. Norman Borlaug in Mexico. They were also available in the United States, but the US varieties were not suitable for us. They are called winter wheats. So I sent a proposal, I think the late 59, 60, early 60, to send an invitation to Dr. Borlaug to come and also bring his material. But it took nearly 2.5 years to go because the file says, why is this man to be invited? What can we learn from him? He is from Mexico and so on. But fortunately...
Had it been somebody from maybe United States or UK, it would have been much easier.
Fortunately, C. Subramaniam intervened and it was helpful too. And later on, Indira Gandhi came. When Indira Gandhi came in 1966, we were importing 10 million tons of food grains. And once when Dr. Vikram Sarabhai and I called on her for something else, for Krishi Darshan program in the Doordarshan, Vikram was very keen to take the technology to the field through television. When we went there, she looked at me and said, Swaminathan, how soon can we build a reserve of 10 million tons? Because that year we had imported 10 million tons under PL 480 wheat. It had stuck in our brain. And it was I was taken aback. I said, Madam, if we do everything right, in another 5 years, we should build up a 10 million ton reserve. And by 1971, this happened. It happened. It did not always happen, but it happened. And she released a special stamp called the Wheat Revolution in 1968. So the political leadership, the administrative leadership like Mr. B. Shivaraman, an outstanding ICS officer, who drew his lessons from the field, not from the files. There are many who go only by files. He drew his policy from the field. Every morning he will come, we both go around the field and what is new and so on. So we had an unusual combination, what I call a symphony orchestra, like a symphony, no jarring sound. The scientists, the administrator, the political leader, all of them came together.
And that built the India.
That is how a revolution could take place. You can't, you see, in 4 years' time, our farmers produced more wheat than the previous 4,000 years. Therefore, that's why it's called a revolution. From Mohenjo-daro to 1966, and 1966 to 1970, production was more in the 4 years than the previous 4,000 years.
It was a different country. I have to take a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back. Welcome back, Dr. Swaminathan. India experienced that revolution. You became a household name everywhere, not only in metropolitan towns and research papers. You became a household name in villages because the village, the farmers, the Indians were thankful to you. Now when you look back, you have done first-rate research. You have brought about this revolution. Where will it take us in future?
Well, the revolution was the product of a combination of characters. Technology was the primer of change, farmers' own enthusiasm, political will, all of them came together. And farmers appreciated. We have a challenge again because the population has grown. There are climate change and other kinds of problems are going to come. That's why eternal vigilance is the price of stable agriculture. I coined the term evergreen revolution because many environmentalists criticize the green revolution from two angles. One is excessive use of pesticide, excessive drawal of groundwater, and salinization of soil and so on.
But even in 1968, you warned the country that excessive use of fertilizer and excessive drawing of water, subsoil water, will lead to problems.
In my Science Congress address in 68 in Varanasi, right. January 68,
I do recall.
I didn't warn the people because I saw in some cases what I call the green revolution.
Hold you responsible
green revolution was becoming a greed revolution. Right. There's nothing wrong with green revolution. In my speech I said we should be very cautious. We must have integrated pest management, integrated nutrient supply, everything in moderation, not in high. So and that's what they call the evergreen revolution.
Yeah, some people still hold you responsible for that. But you have been warning against it. Now, how do you think that we should move forward now, when the situation in the country is that it's going to take another turning point probably?
See, what people have to realize is inputs are needed for output. You need, the plant requires also some nutrients to give output. But how do you give those inputs in a way that do not have long-term harm? That is why I coined the term evergreen revolution, which I define increase in productivity in perpetuity without ecological harm, without associated ecological harm. This can be done now. We have technologies. We can produce more and more without harm to the land. You give back to the land what you have taken out. Partly today organic farming is becoming popular. Organic farming can be practiced provided you have access to a large number of animals or cow dung or cake and so on. So I think we should not forget ecology, what we call eco-technology, mainstream environmental conservation in technology development and dissemination. This particular center, for example, is designed only for that purpose of mainstreaming environmental conservations in technology development and dissemination. So science shows the way. You can either use or abuse science.
Some people argue that now Indian society and economy has to get into that transformative mode from agrarian society to industrialized society. Do you agree with that?
I don't agree, because agrarian society in our country is the majority of society. And you can do without anything but not without food. So from the dawn of humankind, the very first agriculture was the first beginning of civilization, of settled communities. Therefore, agriculture has to coexist. Now, you can go two ways. One is highly industrialized agriculture, like what developed countries have done. All are machine-made. But a country with us with already 1.2 billion population, which is likely to become 1.5, the jobless growth is characteristic of modern industry. Job-led growth is characteristic of agriculture. We cannot afford but to take the job-led growth pathway. We have to give way. So I would say agriculture, but modernized agriculture. Even now there's mechanization, there's use of IT, very much the mobile phone as a source, because the monsoon and the market are the two major impediments to a farmer's own income. So the monsoon and the market both can be predicted by, they have good knowledge how to manage them and so on. So modern extension has become much more effective as a result of new technologies. The younger generation is not going to be attracted to agriculture unless there is some intellectual satisfaction in addition to income. And we have now to concentrate on how to attract and retain youth in farming. And in the National Commission on Farmers, we had given a lot of thought to it and suggested methods by which the young people, both by modern technology on one hand, and assured and remunerative marketing. For example, I had recommended that the price of procurement price must be C2, that is all cost of production, plus 50% margin. Some people think it's too much for a farmer. After all, the farmer is also another Indian. He has to have not only food, as this said, man does not live by food alone. You need other things. So I don't believe that we can go purely industrialized country. We should look at both industrialization and agriculture as those which will be mutually reinforcing each other, not antagonistic.
Your work as a scientist, as a social reformer, as a person who transformed India has been recognized. And this room where we are sitting is a witness to more than 250 shields, certificates. I did count, and I couldn't count the shields in the other room. So your work has been recognized, and I'm very happy that a shield from United Nations is sitting side by side from a message that was given to you by school children. So you don't distinguish between very high and very, very ordinary recognition by ordinary person. However, which award did excite you most?
Well, as you say, there are so many awards, and I'm grateful to all those Because it's an encouragement. It is an encouragement that you are going on the right line, or that's how I consider it, because awards do not stay in my mind. But one occasion I still remember was 1968, when Indira Gandhi declared the Green Revolution. There was a very big gathering of farmers. They had invited her to come and open a seed cooperative. Suddenly, the chairman of the seed cooperative asked Indira Gandhi to put a medal on me, saying that this is the man responsible for it. Now, I think that is worth than any other award, coming from the clients of
probably illiterate farmers.
As I told you last time in Amritsar, when the farmers recalled what I did 50 years ago, it's a source of encouragement, it's a source of satisfaction that you have done something which has been useful to your fellow human beings.
Though I would like to continue the discussion, but before we sign off, may I request you to give a message to younger generation?
I want to remind them what Nehru once said, the future belongs to science and those who make friendship with science. I said make friendship with science. You may not be a scientist, but you may get away from the superstition, get away from all the wrong things which are happening in our society. And I think make friendship with science. I think it's a beautiful word. The future belongs to science. And so we must, modern technology is leapfrogging. Modern information technology, they are transformational technologies. They transform the way in which you communicate, they transform the way in which you live.
And in which you think.
So, in my time, we were struggling to get opportunity. Here there are opportunities awaiting young people, and grab it.
India is a land of opportunities, and the future belongs to science. Make friends with science. That is the message we take home today. For now, that's all. We'll come back with one more outstanding scientist next week. Thank you for watching Eureka.